what's gonna be the? Okay, what's good, Sharjil? You got something to say?
Yeah, I'm good, guys. Yeah, hi guys. I am from Pakistan. I just
okay. Imran Khan? Are you a supporter of Imran Khan?
Yeah. Absolutely. I am a supporter of him.
Okay. That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing he has widespread support of the people in Pakistan.
Absolutely. It can be seen all around the world. They're protesting for what has been happening in Pakistan for the past few days.
Are they controlled by the West?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That is what Imran Khan has actually said in the past few days, which has actually backfired since he has made those statements. He instantly has been his government has been, toppled down through a vote of no confidence by the opposing parties, who have absolutely nothing in common except with their ties to their American Western masters. And all of Pakistan, the people residing here are, we can see this clearly, how blatantly the U.S. can interfere in, small countries like third world developing countries like Pakistan, like Sri Lanka.
Talk your shit, Sharjil. Talk your shit, bro. Hell yeah, you spit facts.
Yeah, man. So this is like pretty sad, and I'm really happy that there are a group of guys like you out there who are actually worried and concerned about such stuff happening and being pulled out by the United States of America. It's no joke. We've had numerous presidents assassinated in our history. We are just 70 years young. Our country is 70 years old. We got freedom in 1947 from, and we're just living we've not recovered from this post-colonial crisis that Europe, laid upon the rest of the world. And they actually stole from these countries and brought about the Industrial Revolution. And, they pushed forward their agendas and they became superpower then. And the next bad guy is America now. All of a sudden, everybody forgets about what Europe did, what British did and colonized all of, this place, which is still yet to be recovered. But instead of helping us, we are constantly being harassed and being toppled off by these foreign powers. Ayub Khan was the first person who got assassinated. Then we have Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, if you know. He was hanged after he denied he was, forcefully went forward in making the nuclear bombs for Pakistan that we had the right to. Because, come on, seriously, what kind of democracy would the world be if some countries have more rights than the other countries, right? So I believe in an equally, since we're a global village, countries should be treated equally, and there shouldn't be any such thing that this country has more superiority over another. All countries are sovereign. Everybody, their people, live in there.
Does Pakistan have nuclear weapons, Sharjil?
Yes, we are a nuclear state, and thus we have all the more responsibility to be a more peaceful and a more stable nation, so that we can. Since we have India as our neighbor, we were independent. We found independence together. We had one day. It's just the one we got independence on 14th of August 1947. They got on 15th August 1947, both from Britishers, right? And when the Britishers left, interestingly, they just left us in a fight between India and Pakistan by not drawing the complete border on Kashmir. Which is why Pakistan and India have been fighting since the past 70 years and forgetting who the real culprits were. Which is great. The West has always been great in deviating from the real mess. They're going to be messing and backing away from that mess.
And to add, Sharjil, and then you have the CIA, and then you have Interpol, and then you have Hamas intervening in areas like the Kashmir, right, where it's a hot spot because of that the geopolitical history, right? And then you see the same thing is with Ukraine not to deviate, but what you see here is you see a conflict between Russia and Ukraine that's been brewing since 2014. They've been fighting since 2014. The globe is just now understanding this. You feel me? And with that being said, you feel me, Sharjil? You see where I'm going with it? That intervention.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is like just completely dual standards that are being set by the West for the rest of the world. You know, if one thing happens in Ukraine, you're allowed to protest in football. You're allowed to protest elsewhere. But if something goes wrong in Israel, something goes wrong in Libya or in Iraq or in Pakistan, you know, you're suddenly you can't criticize anything, and you're the bad guy if you're doing it. You're suddenly.
But Sharjil, and just to emphasize everything you just said, because you just touched on a lot of geographical areas that are hotspots that do affect everyone globally, since the United States now has such a strong arm globally. So whatever they do globally is now not only affecting us, it's now affecting people in India, it's affecting people in Ukraine. And like you said, brother, you know, it's this intervention, it's this fueling, it's this military-industrial complex that will not survive without war. The United States, in its less than 300 history, has only been at peace for 16 years, Sharjil. You feel me? And I'm sure you've seen the result of that.
Absolutely. I think the problem majorly there is that war has become a profitable business for all of these oblivionaires in the United States of America. You feel me? Because, you know, if people are profiting from war, they're companies, they're big companies, they're big industrialists, they're big businessmen who are just profiting off of war. I've heard that people are betting on different, you know, economies of countries going up and down. And, I mean, this is some elite level shit. This is some
you can't even imagine what type of stakes they're putting up. Like, they're putting up about dollar amounts that 20 of your generations will never see, just because they've held so much hegemony for so many centuries. It's fucking evil. Filthy creatures, as my brother Connor calls them. Filthy creatures. Fucking colonizers. They're evil.
Could I add something
demonic
to this? And I want to ask Sargil this, because he mentioned nuclear weapons, right? And off of that topic, you know, I just did a quick Google search, and it says, as of November 2020, India has 22 nuclear reactors. So that's just telling me that you guys are maybe dealing with a power issue. Am I correct?
He's in Pakistan, brother.
There is a power issue in Pakistan. Yeah, I am from Pakistan.
Is the same thing in Pakistan also?
Right, there is a power shortage in Pakistan, but that is majorly because of the incompetencies of our politicians that have handled the state.
Hegemony.
What I really think that is a code for is actually nuclear power and basically energy independence. Because, you know, nuclear power was started off of energy independence before it was ever developed into a nuclear weapon. And this is something that they went after Saddam. He was just trying to make nuclear power plants, and they were trying to say that he was trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And this is the reason.
Weapons of mass destruction, right?
Yeah, they use that as a context to go in and police, you know, those people, because he was just trying to be more energy independent. And I find that America and these governments does that a lot to these third world underdeveloped countries that are, you know, are hungry for more energy independence. You know, they don't want to be attached to the West no more. They want to be more independent. And I see that as a context of them just using nuclear weapons as a pretext, instead of just saying they don't want them to be energy independent.
Mm, I hear you, Jamar. You might be right in some points. I'm not gonna lie. But let me just put a question out to you guys here. What would you do if there was an enemy state or enemy states that were nuclear powers? How would you defend yourself, or how would you plan to defend yourself? What would be the most
covert operations to destabilize those countries?
Can I say
covert?
Can I say this? I don't think the world properly understands what nuclear weapons are and what nuclear power is.
I understand.
You understand? Okay, because I've actually seen.
We were about to go to war with India, very recently. Just back in, a few months back, India, there were some fighter jets that crossed over our border, and they tried to throw down they tried to bomb a certain place, and they tried to claim that we bombed some terrorists. None were killed. There were just a few trees that were bombed, and there were no casualties or no collateral damage. So, but our Air Force strike back. They got the planes. One of their Air Force pilots fell into Pakistan. Pakistan had their Air Force pilot. Then what happened? India suddenly, all of a sudden, locked all the nukes, 4 nukes at Pakistan. Right? Now, they were threatening or blackmailing Pakistan into returning their Air Force pilot, which we were going to in any ways. But this kind of threat, how do you deal with such a threat? A country that is like 5 times bigger than us, which is like many times bigger than us, economically, population-wise, in every way. How does a small country defend itself when it comes with such neighboring countries that are not very stable and have a very fascist kind of government? The Modi's regime is very fascist, like the Nazis, like the RSS. So Pakistan, in retaliation, just to deter the attack, we had to lock 8 nukes back at them until other people intervened and told them not to do so. We obviously never ever gonna involve ourselves into a nuclear fight, right? USA is definitely not the right person to be schooling people about a nuke, because it's the first country and the only country that has nuked Japan. We all know this. So it doesn't make any sense.
Most violent.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. And look at Israel. Israel has nukes. It keeps on developing nukes. It doesn't answer. Now, Pakistan is the only threat in the Muslim world. The only nuclear state. Yep, I'm listening.
Sharjil, Israel used Palestinians as live fire training practice, basically. As you know, and then not only that, with these illegal settlements that these Israelis are creating on Palestinian land, and then they have the IDF, the Israel Defense Force, then they come in and then they protect these Israeli squatters on this Palestinian lands, and the numbers are insane. I just came across this study. I think it's about 750,000 Israeli squatters on Palestinian land being protected by the IDF. Like, what? What, Sharjil? You feel me?
Yeah, this is like insane, sir. I completely feel you. I mean, it hurts me. It hurts me how we were in the 21st century, man. We were supposed to be civilized. We were supposed to be living a very peaceful. We should be living in a very peaceful kind of world. This is insane how our world is operating today. I call this the New World Order. The New World Order is absolutely insane, and it's definitely not for the people. It is suited for the elites only. A few handful of elites who do not belong to any country, I would say. The whole world belongs to them, I would say. Because they're pulling strings wherever they can, whatever they can. I mean, this kind of stuff is like horrific and horrendous. I don't know what kind of reaction What do you guys think about all this? I mean, how the U.S. is able to intervene and interfere. Like, it's still funding Israel. You know that the United States of America funds so much uses so much of taxpayers' money of the United States, citizens' tax money to fund Israel's military and other expenditures. And the United States also funds the United Nations. I've heard about approximately 90 to 95% of the funding for United Nations come from
agreed.
USA. I mean, if USA stops funding for United Nations, it cease to exist. And very recently, I'd like to point out something from the United Nations that I found really unfair. While I guess it was Trump's administration when they declared Jerusalem the capital of Israel, but before that it used to be part of Palestine, right? And when this was voted in the United Nations, all of the countries except two, Israel and United States, voted for that. And the rest of the world voted against that. What was the decision? What was the outcome?
That was a declaration of war on the Islamic world, essentially.
Right, but it was the entire world, right? It was just not only the Muslim world. I mean, like, the United States, Israel, and England.
Well, Sharjil, you want to know why? You want to know why? When you look at the percentage of how much the United States funds their Department of Defense, right? It's insane. It makes no sense.
Especially when you're
so with that being said,
that's why the biggest debt that anybody ever has in this world right now is the United States of America. How can the United States of America be giving out aid to other countries and other institutions while they themselves are in debt? I mean, don't you think that sounds like somebody is spending money from the United States who does not care about the United States? And I mean, that's kind of hurtful.
I would
foreigners too.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, when it comes to that, right, I don't even necessarily believe those numbers. Everything that they put in front of us is to trigger us in some way, to make us feel some type of way. The same thing I want to say, like, even with the nuclear thing. Think about the psychology that they did to a generation of people with the nuclear scare. They had little children hiding underneath their desk as if their desk was going to save them. You know what I'm saying? Which was just a scare tactic to imprint something in our mind, to be scared of something, to not really have understanding, because when you're in a fear state, you're not really thinking clearly. I think that's what this whole pandemic was also about. Constant fear. Fear of what? This boogeyman that they tell us that we need to be afraid of, As far as the funding, right? It's tough here because there hasn't been no real auditing or accounting of what the hell they've actually been doing. Because a lot of what they say they're doing, I believe, is just funneled into some black ops, black backdoor, never to be heard of.
Confidential. Yep.
Yeah, confidential. They put a stamp on it. It's just for the average American, it's very hard. It's very, very, very hard. I mean, we can't even find out what's in Fort Knox.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like, if you would try to dig too much deep, I would suggest you don't. We all know what happened with Edward Snowden, and also the other guy, Edward Snowden, that person. Yeah. So that's kind of sad, man.
Well, unfortunately, it feels like it's going to reach a pivotal crux at some point, right? They're going to start some type of war to muddy the waters in between countries, to fester up some type of fighting effort, some type of conflict. And to be honest with you, we just really just need to detach from a lot of this. And we need to condemn a lot of these actions outright, But the problem is the media also. We don't control the media. What the world sees, it's very hard. Like even now, we're talking on a one-to-one basis. We would never get this perspective if we were not doing this in person. If we were just watching the tube, we would just get the Western version of, their reality that they're trying to portray.
Right.
Also, like one of the saddest things I thought was the portrayal that they had on Gaddafi. Whole demonization that they did to that man. Yet it's funny because once they did that to that man, I remember the day after he was killed. They literally had his face, his dead, bloody face, on literally every news cover. And I live in New York City. When I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to research this man, because why did they hate him so much, and why are they trying to portray him as such a big bad boogeyman? I started doing real research about how Libya came to power and how he brought Libya out of the dirt. He brought Libya out of the dirt to have even a higher living standard than Russia had when he was at power. Okay, Libyans were living better than Russians. Okay, he had so many social programs for the people. He had what they would call a real democracy. I believe it was called the Jamahiriya. That was a place where the people would actually go in to a city center and voice directly to their politicians on what they want done. And they didn't have to pay for certain things like electricity or water. Housing was amazing. If you got married, they would build your house.
Right.
These are the type of things that he did for his people.
If you had a child, they would give you money. If they would, so that you can. If you're a poor guy, if you don't, you're not scared of having any children because you're short on money. They would take care of all the expenses of the child. If you wanted to go for farming, they would give you all the seeds, all the equipment, and all the training that you need, so that you can start growing crops and you can start farming. So there were some amazing projects. And he was transferring all the oil, the money that he would get from the oil directly into the accounts of the citizens after he found out that his government officials were trying to do some corruption. They were doing some corrupt practices in the oil profits. So he decided that all the profits would be going into the accounts of the citizens directly, which was, I don't know what more the people could ask for. But like you said, it's the media warfare. There's so much disinformation. There's so much blackout of the true picture that the people are manipulated easily, and when so much money is injected into other countries, they buy out other countries' media houses, they buy out politicians, they buy out diplomats, bureaucrats. So in a way, the United States controls the weak countries by they have them by the balls. They are controlling everything. Once they find, if you have a weak democracy, if the country is not standing up, if it doesn't have a foreign policy which is free, and not dictated by the United States of America, that is absolutely not acceptable to any president.
I barely understand.
Well, you gotta listen a little closer then.
All right. I'm just trolling.
All right. It was really nice knowing all of this, and I appreciate you guys. I just wanted to share what's happening here on this side of the world. So, so that you have insight on what's happening on the other side of the planet, just in case your Google searches or your social media doesn't show you all of this information, like we know that it usually doesn't. You know, the information is controlled.
We appreciate that. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say same thing. We appreciate that, Sir Jared, because we want the image of our people here in America to be perceived a certain way too. And a lot of times our image and our fight isn't necessarily shown, especially as indigenous people who may have a darker skin tone. A lot of times our fight is kind of muffled amongst everyone else, and we're just trying to tell the world that we still exist, we're still here, and we're looking liberated from the oppression that we've been going through for almost 400 to 500 years.
I feel you. We stand with you guys, and you have all of our support. I assure you, all the Pakistanis do support you, and you have our heart. And I request and urge all of you to please do support Pakistan in the foreign interference that the United States is trying to do in Pakistan at the moment with Imran Khan and all the situation at hand. It is clear on the social media that we have refused to give in to what the United States want, and we will not accept the imported government that has been imposed on Pakistan at the moment. Likewise, I really appreciate the struggle that you guys have been going through, and I salute all of you and your resilience with which you guys fought. And over the years, you know, there have been numerous amazing leaders and heroic figures that I respect from all my heart, like Martin Luther King, like Malcolm X, like Muhammad Ali, like, you know, there's so many people I respect, and I respect you guys, that you guys are still together and you're still trying to talk and work things out over there. I really hope. I was hoping that things in the 21st century would be different, but what I see on social media, how the police, the police brutality, and the so much of, you know, lack of representation in the media everywhere, it certainly doesn't feel like it was the 21st century America that we all imagine or used to, you know, aspire to, you know, 10, 20 years ago.
You know, and I think that's very interesting. You know, the dream that people had of America, it's turning into a nightmare.
So yeah, I agree with what Jamar you just said and what Channel has been saying. I just have a couple of things in my head going on right now. I believe the United States of America is really good at dividing and ruling. You know, the motto being divide and rule. If you've heard of that, it's pretty common. So I believe they do that outside and within the United States. As I'm referring to the previous conversation that you were having regarding the blacks fighting the Asians, that just makes no sense to me. It shouldn't be that way, because these people are, like Shan said, part of the rainbow. They shouldn't be fighting. They both love America. They both trying to survive. They both have their rights, and you know, they're fighting for their respect, which is pretty much okay. Well, who is dividing them? The division interests, you know, there are different interests and beneficiaries for every action that has been taking place. So who does this benefit, this division benefit? So if you look at all the divisions that are taking place inside USA and outside USA, I believe the dots do somewhat start to connect. And you know, like Shan was saying, that we need to keep a more global perspective so that we can understand what's happening inside our country as well. It just gives us a better understanding and insight in what's happening outside and what's happening inside, and how all of this is all connected. So yeah, I guess this is what has been going on in my mind. The other thing that I wanted to shed light upon is that the West, and particularly the United States of America, is known for not celebrating and respecting other people's history and culture. So they're always destroying different nations and tribal history
and they're trying to deviate the people away from their history and their culture so that they forget. And they're not celebrating too much of their identity and their culture, and so that they can become part of the rainbow that they want you to become. By giving up your identity, and they're ripping you off. They want you to forget about the ancestral and whatever wrongs that they've done with your ancestors, right? So they don't want us to be resenting over that. And this is, I guess, what has been basically going on in my mind. If somebody can shed light upon this better, I'll be listening gladly.
Hey, I found a quick breakdown of major world history from 1900 to 1914. And I would just like to read it to the room because I believe it would show a good viewpoint of what the world was going through right before World War I popped off. So I'm just going to read this line by line. There is at least maybe 20 lines. So starting with 1901, you got the death of Queen Victoria. Also in 1901, Edward VII comes to the English throne. That same year, Marconi sends the first transatlantic radio message from Britain. Also, Boas surrenders to the British forces in South Africa in 1902. The right. Also in 1903, you get the Bolshevik.
Lost like over a quarter of their naval fleet during the Russo-Japanese War too. So that's key.
Yes, and that's something that we really don't hear about, especially explained in our type of context of history. You don't hear about the Russo-Japanese War. But yeah, that pops off in 1904. Let me see a couple of other big ones. 1905, you get the Bloody Sunday Massacre in St. Petersburg. So that's here in America. Turk Revolution established the Constitution in Turkey by 1908. You get Robert Perry, developed. Then 1912 is the African National Congress formed in South Africa. You see the expansion into Africa a lot during this time, especially South Africa. You get the industrialization of, I guess, your vehicles, like your mass.
I'd like to point out, you started at 1900s, right?
Yes.
All right. If you have the paper, could you search for what happened in 1897, 3 years before 1900? There's an important thing that happened in 1897, after which all of this is being followed and pushed forward through and through.
You tell me if this is correct. I'm getting the Greco-Turkish Wars.
Okay.
Conflict between the Greeks and the Turks. Am I correct?
That is right. That is absolutely right. And one other important thing that happens in 1897 is Zionism as an organized movement is generally considered to have been founded by Theodor Herzl in 1897.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Wait, what was that again? Say that again, sorry.
Zionism as an organized movement was considered to be founded by Theodor Herzl in 1897. So the Zionist movement was founded in 1897 officially by Theodor Herzl. That is during the war that Jamar just referred to, the Turk War. And I also think that one of the important things that function, I believe at that time the superpowers were the Turkish, the what do we call that? In our local language, we call it Sultanate Osmania, and I believe anyways, the Turkish Caliphate that used to be present was broken down after the World War into various pieces and divided into numerous Muslim countries. So the Islamic state that was won for 900 years was destroyed and broken into numerous small countries and was distributed among England and France and Italy and Germany, and they all became smaller colonies at the end of World War I. I believe so. Or by the end of World War II. I could be wrong. I'm sorry. But yeah, this was the beginning of all of that.
Wow, that's a good puzzle piece right there. Wow, there's a lot going on in this little time period. So even if we was to take, let's say, this thing is saying 1946. So let's go from 1846 to 1946. What's happening in 1846? Isn't that where we're going to start Civil War? Are we in the Civil War at this point?
It's crazy, yeah. Because it's a company registered in London. That's all that they are. That's owned by the Queen, so there you go. As well as the Pope. There you go. You got to understand it's all business.
In 1917, I guess, the Balfour Declaration also got signed. I guess that's 19.
Okay, can I just say one thing?
No?
I am just so mad